You know, where his eyes get all big and he turns his head and he gets real stiff and he looks at me.
And he's like,
and I'm like, I got 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I got 10 seconds to intervene and do something before he's like, I'll kill it.
Hey.
Hi.
It's been a while.
I'm back. I was gone in a better place.
Yeah. She just like, you know, it was a crazy story. Like, so crazy.
So crazy. You really should have been there.
Yeah.
Anywho, we're back now.
Yeah.
Back in action.
I think that I have no idea, like, how many people watch this, and I think 0. And then there will be people that come in and they're like, oh, I watched you on your podcast. And I'm like, so embarrassing. Me?
You immediately like rethink. You're like, everything I've ever said on that podcast.
Yeah.
People have heard it.
And then people will be like, oh, you're social media famous. I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, please don't say that to me.
That's embarrassing.
Speaking of how much I hate social media, I went back to a dumb phone.
I know.
I don't have a smartphone anymore. I'm dumb phone only.
Yeah.
Get one, Bridget.
I know.
I know you want to. You've been longingly staring at it.
I know. I just love the way it looks.
You want the Barbie phone.
Does it have maps?
It actually does.
Okay.
It actually does. But I bought a Garmin for my car.
Okay.
I got an old-fashioned GPS that's in my car.
Yeah.
I'm rebuilding my CD collection.
Yeah.
We're really just going back to the Y2K here.
I don't even have a CD player in my car because it's like so modern.
It's like so new and so modern.
In my last car, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to say it. I had 6 CD player, which at the time was like, wow, 6 CDs in once. And it broke. And my entire collection, discography of Taylor Swift from album 1 to 6 was in there.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I've invested in those albums.
Yeah.
Like, I want them back. And my husband had to like do some crazy shit to like unscrew it and get the CD player out. And then we got a lot of money taken off the car's value because of that.
Wow.
But I have my CDs.
That you needed them.
Yeah.
I think it's valid.
Yeah.
I 100% think it's valid. Because even if that decreased the value, wouldn't a broken CD player still decrease the value? It's not like they could use it.
Yeah.
You know?
True.
Exactly.
And it didn't work after that, but I still got money for the car.
Yeah, and you got your CDs back.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. But yeah, I think everyone should get a dumb phone.
We should all be dumb.
Yep. This is dumb phone summer.
Yes, dumb phone summer.
For sure.
I deleted my personal Instagram recently, and my mental health, she's thriving.
Skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm. I still have my work one, but it's all dog stuff, and I like
better.
that.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as bad.
No, not at all. What are we talking about today?
Well, we have a couple of topics in mind. One, Michelle got a new puppy, so congratulations.
You outed me.
Yeah. That was
surprise.
Why she was,
that's where I've been.
Yeah, she's been being on her paternity leave.
Yes, pupternity, if you will.
Paternity leave.
Yeah.
So I think you're doing a really great job with her, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about like doing things so mindfully.
Yeah.
And perfectly that like this dog is going to be completely great when she's
I
an
hope
adult.
so. I hope so. That is the plan.
Yes. And then I think we wanted to talk about suppression because somebody in the messaged us about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we'll get to, I listened to a really good podcast from Michael Ellis. It's not from him, but he was a guest on it, and interesting topic. So.
Which kind of coincides with the talk about suppression, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
So that could be a little twofer on that one.
Yes.
I mean, so with the puppy, do you have like specific questions? Not that you're actually needing information from me, but like to spark the conversation.
Yeah. So
Bridget,
like,
do you want to learn how to raise a puppy?
Yes, because I look at the things I did with Pip, and then I look at like the things you're doing with her, and like the things I could have done with Pip. And if I ever got a puppy again, I would be completely different.
Yeah.
But even still, like, I've had Pip for 3 years. 3 years ago, wasn't as informed. Crazy. Yeah.
She's already that old.
Yes.
That's like Snoop's 4.
I know.
Isn't
it's
that weird?
crazy. And there's definitely things like I love that I did, like potty training. You have to be like anal about potty training for a long time, and people don't realize like how on top of it you have to be, and you're timing things. And if your dog doesn't go, then you're like, okay, well, for the next hour, I'm screwed because until you go, I have to be with you.
Yes. It's funny because to speak on potty training, I think that's a good place to start. Because I got her when she was 9 weeks old, and she's a little over 11 weeks now, and 0 accidents in the house.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And like everyone's so shocked by that. And I'm like, I even had somebody like ask me, they're like, how's potty training going?
Yeah.
As if it's like this big doomsday thing. And I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
And they're like, any accidents? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, she's so smart. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, she's not smart in the fact that like she telepathically knows I don't want her to go in the house. Like, she just, and I told them, I was like, she hasn't had any accidents because I just don't let her.
Yeah.
And that's like such a foreign concept to people.
Yeah.
Like, this dog is literally in her kennel in a little like 4x4 pen on a leash with me, or on a leash anchored to something. She's not just free roaming.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make one exception. I do a thing called crazy time with my puppies, where immediately upon, like, if she just so happens to bless me with peeing and pooping in the same trip, she gets to come inside, and we just let her run rogue around the house, and I just follow her around and do damage control.
Yeah.
And she has an absolute fucking blast. She's like, this is the best 5 minutes of my life. But we only do crazy time if she has peed and pooped.
Yeah.
I'm confident nothing else is going to be coming out of her body.
Yes.
But again, even then, I'm following her around. Like, it's like a very intentional, like, we're following you around and making sure that you're not just wandering and getting into things.
Yes.
But otherwise, like, she's 100% contained at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are like really shocked also. Like, is she in the room? She's not in the room, but she's in the room out there.
Yeah.
And she's not making a peep. And I think number one thing people come to us with is like the puppy won't stop screaming in the crate, and I let it out because something's wrong. Like, the dog should not be screaming like that.
Oh, yeah.
Something is terribly wrong with the dog, and I'm going to cause emotional damage if I ignore it.
No, this girl, she was screaming primal, prehistoric.
Yeah.
It was like the sounds of many demons of ancestors past were coming out of her vocal cords.
Yeah.
The first 3 days.
Throwing like an absolute fit.
Yes. And even my husband was like, this doesn't seem normal. I don't think this. And I was like, babe, trust me, this is normal.
Yeah.
We just got very lucky with Snoop, and my Chihuahua was the last puppy that we crate trained, and he was like remarkably easy.
Yeah.
Like, he gave me the easiest time with it.
Yes.
He's always been an independent little guy, and he was like, cool, I'll just go in here and nap. Like, he did not care at all. Maybe some minor whining every now and then.
Yeah.
But this girl, whew, she had some pipes on her.
Yeah.
The neighbors could hear it.
Yes.
Like, it was bad.
So frustrating. Like, I dealt with that with Pip, and like, I definitely fucked up because she was terrible for months. And I remember like having dissociations and being like, can I go drop her off at the shelter? Because she would not stop. Like, she was screaming. And the mistake I made, which I truly think attributed it to her not being comfortable in a crate, was I had her in this big pen.
Oh, it was
like
too
this
big
size. And I was just like, that's fine. Like, she can just be in that pen. And it was soft, so she could like climb up and she'd go through the roof and just get out of it all the time. And in the past, like, my pet sitter shamed me for how small her crate was at the time, but that was really necessary for her.
Yeah.
And now she's like completely different. There's no screaming in the crate, a little whining, like we said, but I had a hard time for a while.
Yeah. Well, and some of it is some problem solving too. So like with Icarus, I had her initially in like a wire kennel that had the divider in it so that I could make it like really small and like the appropriate size, but that gave her too many things to like bite. and chew on and be angry at and everything. So I switched to a plastic crate, and that helped a lot because then she wasn't able to like thrash on things and bite stuff. And so it removed her options of what she could do in the kennel, which kind of forced her to have to calm down a little bit quicker. And it was safer too. I tried that for like 30 minutes and I was like, well, this ain't gonna work.
Yes.
So, I switched to a different kind of kennel, and then I put her in the basement and I said, see you in 4 hours, girl. I'll be laying on the couch trying to sleep while you're down there screaming. You truly just have to like let them do it.
Yeah. And that's where people don't recognize that they think that they're being mean or nasty or like they're going to damage their dog's emotional well-being. And that's like the bullshit that sometimes you're fed. Yeah. But you really just have to ignore it. And if all your dog's needs are met and you're getting ahead of like, okay, she want poop, she want pee, she's going to do time in her crate.
Exactly. And it's like that's a big piece of it though. You're right. Is that you need to be confident that like she's good to go. And you're not second guessing like, oh, does she have to poop because she didn't poop before I put her in there? And so it's super important that you keep track of everything. Like when I get dogs, I just prefer in my schedule and what I do for a living just enables me to basically be the main person that takes care of and raises the dog. Like my husband's there, and he'll help me with things if I need him to, but like he's not the one taking her out for potty breaks. He's not putting her in the crate. He's not doing any of that. And that's fine. I prefer that, honestly. But that's something to keep in mind too, is that when you have multiple people in a household and you're expecting everybody to take part and responsibility of the puppy, you have to think about how realistic is that? Yeah. And also, if that's going to happen, what I recommend people do is like having a log, like a written log of what the dog did on their potty breaks. Yeah. And they need to go out a lot.
They do.
That is something I think people underestimate. Just how often they need to go to the bathroom.
Like almost like every hour.
Yeah.
And initially, and then you want them to start to get the muscles of holding their bladder. But when they're so young initially, like they can't.
No, they can't.
They don't have that power yet.
And you don't want them to, using the crate is how you extend potty breaks. You can't expect them to extend a potty break when they're not in the kennel. Yeah. I think that's a distinguishing factor too, is that like, if you're saying like, okay, I want to go from an hour to now I think we could do an hour and a half or whatever, that means you put them in the kennel for an hour and a half and then take them out and immediately go to the bathroom. Not let's play with them for an hour and a half and expect them to not go at the hour mark because they're out. Of course they're going to do it. Yes. You need to use the crate as your means to extend those potty breaks because they're not going to want to go to the bathroom in their kennel. No. That's a big piece of it.
Yeah. And there are some dogs that absolutely do. And there's a lot of people that say, like, I have pee and poop in my kennel every single day. Yeah. And that's at that point you really need to look at your scheduling of things. Yeah. When you're giving water and how often you're letting your dog out. And if you work a 12-hour day and you're, like, shocked that your puppy's covered in poop, you got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have to. Like, that's where I'm lucky in the sense that, like, she can come to work with me and I'm able to take her out regularly and stuff as she's maturing. But, and like, a lot of people thought I was kind of crazy for taking off 2 weeks as soon as I got the puppy. But, like, if you can do it, I would do it. Yeah. If your schedule allows you to take some time off immediately after getting a puppy, it will make your life so much easier because I can't imagine dealing with what I had to deal with those first 3 days with her as she was adjusting and getting into the routine and then getting up and going to work the next day. Yeah. That would have been a nightmare. Yeah, yeah. And now, like, when she comes to work with me, like you said, she's not making a peep. She's being nice and calm in there. She's on a good routine with her pottying. So I know, when she has to go poop and when she has to go pee and all those kinds of things. So it just makes it a lot easier, I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of the times clients or people on the internet, people asking about puppy things, they're expecting us to like give a magical answer that makes their life easier and be like, oh, well, you just do this and your puppy doesn't scream in the crate anymore or go potty. And it's just like, it's a process. Yes. And you have to accept that when you get a puppy that you're going to regret getting that puppy. Yes. At some point.
Yeah. At some point you're going to be like,
shit, did I make the right choice?
And like, I don't think I've hit that because I'm kind of weird. I love raising puppies. There's something about it that I like really enjoy. I like the process and like the puzzle like of it, you know, and things like that. But again, I think I'm lucky in that my job allows for it to be as easy. If there's much less difficulty, you know, raising a puppy, being a dog trainer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Than working a normal 9 to 5 and having to figure out, okay, well, I can't leave my puppy in the kennel for 8 hours alone at home. So who's going to let it out during the day? And, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then you come home and you have a million things to do and you feel guilty because you didn't hang out with your puppy and you don't want to put it in the kennel. Like, I empathize, you know, like I get why all of that is difficult and why it's easier for us to a certain degree. But it doesn't change the fact that, like, there are some days where, like, you just have to accept that, like, okay, the puppy can't be the center of attention and the center of everything we do. And in turn, I can't sacrifice the good boundaries and stuff that I put in place just because I feel bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even if I go home later and I can't do anything with her and I can't supervise her and I can't have her out because I have a million other things that need to do that don't pertain to her, I'm not going to let myself feel guilty and be like, fine, I'll just let you, you know, roam around while I go do dishes really quick. And no, she's still going to go in the kennel. She's still going to be contained. And I'm going to be like, well, sorry, this day wasn't the best for a puppy, but it is what it is.
I mean, it's a small portion of her life.
Yes.
And like, people underestimate just how much time your dog should be spending in the crate.
You need to sleep a lot.
Yeah. We get a lot of hate comments. They're like, why even have a dog if you're going to put it in the crate? Be like, because they'll kill themselves.
You're right. Right. Like, puppies need to sleep like 18 to 19 hours a day.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And if they aren't sleeping that much, they're going to be little hellions. If your puppy is like erratic and angry and testy and extra bitey and just all that kind of stuff, I guarantee you they are not sleeping enough. And the reason they're not sleeping enough is because you're not putting them in the kennel to where they are forced to sleep because they're cut off from stimulus. You're leaving them out around the house. And so every time something happens, they're up. And then somebody comes home and they're up. And then, somebody's barking outside. I want to go look at it. And they're not sleeping for like a good chunk of time that they need to.
Yeah. Like, my toxic trait is thinking that a baby is going to be the same as a puppy.
Yeah.
And that, like, I've gone through it with a puppy like multiple times and I can be like, easy peasy.
You know what's weird is I've had multiple people that have had babies and puppies and they say that babies are easier.
Yeah, they do. I've heard that too.
They say that babies are easier. And I don't know. I'm sure I'll experience it one day and I'll report back with findings on whether it's easier or not. I can expect it's probably a very unique experience depending on the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
I was not an easy baby. I screamed for the first 6 months of my life nonstop. I came into the world raging.
Yes.
That probably makes a lot of sense to everyone out there.
Yes. So, raising a puppy. It's got its trials and tribulations, but what a rewarding experience.
It is.
And
it is.
Loving something so much, like...
It's weird how much you love them in such a short amount of time.
Yes. And I think we were both saying, like, before Pip, like, I have 2 females other than Pip, but I was like, I don't want any female. Fuck female dogs. And now I love her so much. And now I'm like, I don't ever want a boy dog again.
Yeah, it's crazy because I never thought I would get like a female dog. And something about me, I was like, I think I need to get a female. And I even had talked to the breeder and she asked me if like my preference. And I was like, if it's the type of dog that checks every box, you know, of what I want and you think it's a good fit, I'll take either. I said, but I generally prefer males. And then like for a week after that conversation, I was like, I think for some reason I'm supposed to get a female.
Yeah.
So I reached back out to her and told her and she was like, perfect.
Yeah.
And it worked out well because there was only 3 females in the litter, but and she was keeping 1. So there was only 2 then available and I got one.
And here we are.
Here we are.
And here we are.
Little Icarus. What else about puppies? What other things would be interesting to talk about?
I think starting to like lead with positive reinforcement rather than leading with punishment, which I think both play a very important, vital role in a dog's lifespan.
Yeah.
In their lifetime, but in those really early stages, you can fuck
No
up
punishment.
a lot.
Yeah, no punishment.
And you can just really ruin, like if they have a fear period, and you're using too much punishment, like you're killing their curiosity for things.
Yes. Well, and somewhat unique to like my dog, I got to do Schutzen. So in that capacity, like I'm really leaning heavy on the like kind of just let her do whatever the fuck she wants to a certain degree, you know, like again, she's like very heavily managed and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like her behaviors, for the most part, you know, she's biting everything. I'm not doing like pet obedience, like corrections and like pet manners. And okay, if she's jumping on things and she's like, I want her really being like pushy and like rude and, you know, exploring and comfortable with her environment and stuff like that. And so that's probably, I would say, maybe a little bit different than what I would recommend like a client
like
is going to do, you know. But that's also because like if you're planning on doing like a sport with the dog, you know, you have to have a different like foundation there. But and the way that she comes from lines, of course, that are suited for Schutzen and very successful in that area. I would hope that someone getting a pet dog, you know, is not going to go to someone breeding Schutzen dogs. But also, even if they did, hopefully that breeder would not give them a puppy. Yeah. They would be like, why don't you wait until maybe I produce one that's a little bit more like pet oriented and you can have one of those, you know?
It's like the podcast, Michael Ellis podcast I was just listening to, he brought up, he's like, people keep buying working dogs and then have no outlet for them and they don't do anything because they look cool and people want the scary dog privileges. Yeah. But then you don't do anything with them and then they're a disaster.
I mean, you look at her now at 11 weeks, like she's going to be a monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how she behaves. And it's like, I think about it in the terms of like, if, not that I'm like this all-knowing person, but I obviously am not a novice, you know, and I have another high drive dog, my Dutch Shepherd. So, but when I look at her, I'm like, this is why these dogs go so bad so quickly when they're with people who just want a pet. Yeah. Because they're not a pet. No. Like they really just are not. And she would be so sad if she was like forced to grow up and live like a normal pet lifestyle. And don't get me wrong, like she's going to be my pet, but she's also going to live this other lifestyle of like very intense work that she's going to love. And it's going to satiate a lot of that drive. But if they don't have that, like you're describing, like they will find it somehow. And it's usually in very inappropriate, dangerous ways.
And then we work like 8-hour, 12-hour shifts. And then we come home and we want to do the bare minimum because we're tired, we're burnt out, and the dog is driving us crazy. Yep. And then we get angry at the dog rather than saying, what in my life is not working? Yep. What am I doing that could be different? Like, don't blame yourself for everything, obviously, but you need to have healthy boundaries, like you said.
Yeah. Well, and it also is like you have to expect your life to change to a certain degree. Like since getting this puppy, now on days that I have to come into work, I'm getting up literally 2 hours earlier than I would usually get up because I want to make sure that I'm not rushed. I hate being rushed in the morning. So part of it is that, but also it's because I want to be able, knowing that I'm going to work a 10-hour day and she's going to have to be crated for portions of it. I want to know that in the morning I can wake up, we all go outside, we all go to the bathroom. I play with all of them. They get good exercise. We come in, we eat. There's enough time at home where she can do both of her poops before we even have to get here. You know what I mean? And like taking account for that, making sure my other dogs still get individual attention for what they need. So it's like you have to kind of, if you're getting another dog and a puppy, especially if you already have dogs, you have to factor in that like your schedule is going to have to change in some way to accommodate for it.
And that's what people don't understand is that they get angry that their life is changing. It's you're committed to a puppy. Yeah. Your life is going to change. We just have to be able to like put some forethought into it rather than impulse get like puppies and be like, oh, well, I'm fucked now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What else would be interesting? Oh, I guess maybe like integrating her into the house with my other dogs.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people do that wrong as well.
That's another one where people are like, oh, how are you going to introduce them? I don't introduce my dogs.
Yes.
I don't. When I got the puppy, we came home. I'll give you the first evening. We came home. My other 2 dogs were crated. And I left them in their kennels for like an hour and a half when I got home so that I could like get everything settled with her, get everything all set up, whatever. And then when they came out, I had her kennel inside of her pen. So like her kennel was in the corner of the room and then that 4x4 pen is around it. So there's like double barriers, and I let them out and like they just kind of pretended she didn't exist. She was screaming in her kennel. I pretended you know what I mean? And like, that was it. There's no introductions, especially on like the first day. No. We're not doing that. And then when I needed to get her out of the kennel to go on potty breaks or to do things with her, I just didn't let my dogs come up to her. Yeah. And I didn't let her get to them. Yeah. You know, and I just created boundaries of like, we're not interacting right now. Because I knew that the novelty was very high from both her and from them.
They're like, who the hell is in our house?
Exactly. And I don't want the puppies seeing them as like toys or a way to like engagement and interaction and all that kind of stuff. I want her to be very like nonchalant about them because I knew Snoop was not going to be happy that she was there. And then I also knew that Lumos he wouldn't care, but he also has a very low tolerance for nonsense. And so if she was constantly fixated on him as like, oh, I need to get to him and I need to play with him and I need to do this, that it was not going to go well for her. And I don't want them to have a bad relationship because I think they're really going to like each other as she matures and like gets older. And so there is just no introduction. Yeah. And I would say they probably lived in the same house for the first week without ever actually like physically touching.
Yeah. It's so important. A lot of people worry so much about the introduction and then they act like Lumos and Snoop should be teaching her something and that she's going to learn from their good behavior. And it's like, no, you got to step in and you have to set those rules for the dogs. Yes. Because they're not going to do that.
No, not at all. And yes, exactly. Like they're not going to potty train her. No. That's a big thing is they're like, oh, she sees the other dogs going to the bathroom and she knows. No, it's not going to happen like that. The only thing she's going to learn from them is social boundaries and cues, which you have to know your dogs to know when that is going to be age appropriate and when it's going to be important and effective and when you should allow that to happen and when you shouldn't, for both sakes of the puppy and the older dogs. And maybe they'll learn from her some confidence, or mix that up. She'll learn from them confidence, like how to respond to if a dog is like, we have neighbors that have dogs that are all very reactive. So if they're barking at them when they're outside and she sees my dogs not caring, sure, she's probably more likely to be like, oh, I guess we don't care, more behavioral stuff like that. Versus if we had a dog that was super reactive and barking out the windows and doing all that all the time, that's 100% probably going to model very poor behavior that she's then going to pick up on. But no, they're not going to magically teach her how to be a good dog. No. That's my job.
A lot of people, like, when they're picking their dogs up from the board and train, like, at the send home lesson, they're like, all right, we're ready for another dog. We're going to get one. And then we don't have to spend the money on the second dog because this dog knows everything. And that dog is going to teach my puppy everything.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, actually,
that's wild talk right there. That's not going to happen at all, actually.
Yes. And you don't want your puppy to have or your dog, puppy, whatever, to have a stronger relationship with another dog than with you.
Exactly.
Because is your other dog going to say, don't step out into the street, look both ways if you get off the leash? No.
No, that's a really good point. Like, you want the dog to be bonded with you and to not have a massive attachment on the other dogs, because that's something very easy to happen because she's going from being with her mom or her litter mates or whoever, you know, most of the time. And then when she comes to the house, it's the reason why a lot of puppies have a hard time with crate training, is that it's the first time they're really alone. It's so important for them, though. They have to learn how to be alone. But if then you allow the dog to be constantly with your other dogs, and this is, I think, partially because I think people feel guilty and they're like, well, I don't want my other dog to feel like they're not getting attention anymore. So, like, they take them both on a walk, or they take them both to the park, or they make them both cuddle on the couch, and everything now is like both dogs have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's detrimental to both of them. Just spend time with them individually.
Yes.
It's going to be way more important for the puppy's development to go on walks alone, to come to work alone, to do all of these things without needing the crutch of another dog.
Yes. Yeah. And I have lots of dogs. Like, I own a lot of dogs. And I felt like a couple months ago walking was a miserable experience because I was like, if I walk one, everybody has to go. And then I felt really guilty because it would take obviously like 45, 50 minutes to do all of that work. And then I still didn't feel like they were satiated enough.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, Tuesday, Pip's going for a walk. Monday, Nellie, you can go for a walk. Wednesday, Spork, it's all you.
Yeah.
And then I'm supplementing them in different ways. So I have the energy and attention span to focus on them. And I'm not resenting like having, well, I did it to myself, but you know, I'm not resenting the dogs because somebody's whining when I'm leaving the house, and I'm like, oh, I feel so guilty. Yeah, like, I do, but I have to let it go.
It is what it is. That's like with even like the couple weeks that I was just home, there were plenty of times where I'd, you know, do what she needed, put her in her kennel, and then I'd take Snoop and Lumos on a walk without her.
Yeah,
and she had to stay home. You know what I mean? So even you still should prioritize like your other dogs on top of the puppy as well. You shouldn't just, you know, be like, okay, well, they'll get over it.
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
chopped liver now.
Yeah, they need that individual attention at times too, so that their whole routine isn't just flipped upside down. And then as far as like when they did allow them to start interacting, again, it was less like, it just wasn't a thing because again, the novelty had worn off. They weren't viewing everybody else as a toy or something really exciting. And so the interactions they had, like Snoop, the Chihuahua, he hazed her for like a week probably.
He's like, ew.
Yeah, he was like, get away from me. And Snoop is someone that like I can trust him to give a correction, and like he might be like a little nasty about it, but he's not gonna hurt anyone. No. Like he doesn't actually have intent of like harming. He's just very dramatic and theatrical about it. But I know that he wasn't going to harm her, and she needs to learn boundaries at a certain point.
Yeah. And strong boundaries.
Yeah. And so especially with him being so small and her quickly going to outgrow him and be more powerful, I wanted him to be able to set those boundaries when she's in this malleable state that she is, so that because she's not going to know she's bigger than him one day. No. Dogs don't have that self-awareness.
They don't.
So how she is respectful of him now at this point is how she will continue to be respectful of him as she gets older. And if for whatever reason that changes, then I will step in, you know, and make sure that those boundaries stay in place. But I thought it very pertinent for him to be able to do that. So I've let that happen, and he's done great. She's been very responsive to it.
Good.
and Lumos is a different case. And again, I think this comes back to just like knowing your dogs. Lumos is a dog that like I can't let him correct.
No, because
he will overcorrect. And so when it comes to him, his tolerance of dogs and puppies especially used to be like I could not have him around puppies when he was younger. Now he is actually wildly tolerant of them within a time frame. So it's like if he's doing something and a puppy starts jumping up and biting at him or whatever, he will literally look at me and do one of these, you know, where his eyes get all big and he turns his head and he gets real stiff and he looks at me.
And he's like,
and
Mom.
I'm like, I got 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I got 10 seconds to intervene and do something before he's like, I'll kill it. I will do that. He wouldn't actually kill it, but you know what I mean? And so we had one situation where he did correct the puppy and she's fine. She just emotionally, it hurt her feelings a little bit. But it was a miscommunication. And this is something that I've since learned from, that trainer jargon doesn't always translate well to like, or people that really know dogs. You have to make sure that you're not just expecting like a lay person to understand. Because the setting was, I was doing something on my computer that involved like banking, and I was like trying to figure something out, and I had her tethered, and she had like a 3-foot tether to the leg of the couch that I was on in her bed and all that kind of stuff. And my husband was sitting next to me on the couch, and he was paying attention to the dogs, and I had told him, and again, like he's a normal everyday guy. He's not a dog person. You know what I mean? Like he is a dog person, but you know what I mean? Not like
in the same
us.
level.
Not in the same level. And so, and also to be fair, he met me when Lumos was like just coming out of his like spiciest era. So he's never really seen Lumos at like dick capacity. Yeah. Like, and so if you don't see how a dog can behave in their intensest, like you're not really going to be able to fully comprehend it. You know what I mean? But I had told him that Lumos was like a lot more tolerant with puppies. Yeah. He interpreted that as like fine and could give corrections and be totally fine, kind of like how Snoop is. And so that was my fault that I didn't communicate the difference. So I'm on my computer. I had no idea that Lumos was laying right underneath Tom and where he was sitting on the couch. And right as I heard Tom was like talking to himself and like narrating what was happening. Again, I was like half paying attention because I was doing something on the computer. And I hear him go, "Oh, she's biting his face." And like right as I hear that and I like come to and I'm like, "Oh no, I should do something." He went to correct her. And again, he didn't hurt her, but his corrections are just so over the top that she was like, she like saw Jesus for a second. And Tom felt terrible. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I totally misunderstood you. I should have intervened." You know what I mean? And so we talked about it and he's like, "I'll make sure that like I don't let that happen again." And nothing terrible happened. And I think honestly, it probably wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. Yeah. You know, I think it was a good learning experience for her probably. It definitely is. Yeah, and she's a lot more respectful of him now. You know, she doesn't quite be as chompy around him anymore. She's like,
"Not that one."
Yeah, she's like, "That one doesn't."
She said, "I fucked around."
She and found out. And she found out. And she's been, and this is actually another piece of it too. So, you know, I got Lumos figured out, whatever. And then, you know, Tom had Icky or whatever, and he had picked her up and then Lumos was just loose. And I was like, "Put her back down." And he was like, "With him still out here?" And I was like, "Yep, just put her back down." Yeah. And he was kind of nervous about it. And I was like, "We can't let that just be it, you know, and then either put her away or put Lumos away, like put her back down I said, I'll be a lot more attentive and watching now, you know, so that I'll be able to like show you when you need to intervene or, you know, things like that. But like, we gotta just go back to it.
Yeah.
Nobody's hurt. Nobody's injured. You know what I mean?
She's not
like
terrified of him.
Exactly. I don't want her to be terrified of him. And, you know, what he did wasn't correct either. And he got corrected for it. But I needed to just like, okay, now we move on. Yeah. And I think that's a big piece with puppies that people miss is that something happens and it almost traumatizes us more than the puppy. And then we traumatize the puppy because we don't allow them to just move on.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh, it happened. Oh, well, let's do better next time.
Yeah. We overcompensate and we're like, this is my fault and I need to fix it.
Yes.
And then we're like, we can't take the dog for a walk because an off-leash dog charged us. We can't do X, Y, and Z. Get back out there.
Yep.
Show your puppy it's not scary.
Yep. Well, that was like the first couple times that I brought her, that we had to go in the main building over there for work because, you know, there's dogs barking. I'm sure it smells weird. Like there's a lot going on. She would just like put the brakes on right outside of the door and not want to go in. And I just, whoop, here we go, right inside. And now she walks in all excited. Yeah. Now it's like nothing. So I think we overthink things. As soon as the dog shows like a negative emotion to something, we immediately like stop and hone in on it. And we're like, what do you need?
Gentle parenting.
What do I need to do for you? Let's sit down and let's talk this through. And sometimes it's like, no, just go. Yeah. Like we're going inside. You're going to come inside. And that's the kind of leadership that a dog needs is that it's like, this isn't scary. Trust me. We're going.
Yeah. Being passive with a dog like only makes them feel more nervous. Yes. If they don't have a clear leader. Or it makes them feel overly confident and they're like, sweet, I control everything.
Yep. We can't have that. Is there anything else? What else would be interesting to talk about with the puppy? Anything you can think of?
We got the crate. We got
the routine.
The routines,
potty training.
Yes.
The dog stuff. Sorry. I just got the funniest text from one of my clients. She goes, can I correct Freddie for humping Ronnie when they get home from the groomer? He is relentless every time they get back from the groomer.
He's like, ooh, you smell nice.
Yes, please do. Please do. That's hilarious. I don't know. I think those are the big ones.
Yeah.
I won't be doing a lot of like, I don't know.
Over socializing.
Yeah, no, I'm socializing her like very specifically
and
right
intentionally.
Now. Very intentionally. Yeah. Absolutely.
If it's one thing in this world that dogs will do, it's humble you.
Yes.
And I got my shit rocked. I got humbled a couple of days ago with my personal dog for being too cavalier in a social setting.
Should we talk about it, Bridget?
Yeah. We were socializing a new dog, and the first 10 minutes, the dog was like, fuck yeah, this is great. Just show no signs of aggression. And I was like, okay, well, I can like multitask now. So I'm going to like write my notes. And then I didn't realize that Sunday went into the groom area and the other dog followed. And then there's a little piece of kibble on the ground. Okay. And Sunday said, that's mine. And the other dog was like, no, that's mine. And Sunday was like, fuck off. That's mine. And the other dog was like, taking her earrings out, grabbed Sunday by the neck, and Sunday's body was, this isn't funny, but
it's only funny because it was your dog, thankfully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean when I say that. And also that everyone's fine.
Yeah, everybody's fine. There was no injuries. Fine. But seeing Sunday's body like just as a rag doll from such an unassuming dog wasn't a pity. It was just this dumbest looking dog. And
wearing a skirt, mind you.
Wearing a skirt. And I swung in there, I think like 1.5 seconds after it happened and separated it immediately. And obviously punished accordingly as I needed to.
Yes.
But I was like, shit. And in that moment, you could be like, okay, everybody's going back up. We're separating everybody. And I said, no.
No.
You girls are going back together. We're getting the band back together.
Put your earrings back in.
Yes. And I had my crop ready and I said, okay, well, I've learned my life lesson. And I'll probably be stupid again. But for a couple of months,
yes,
that's really going to affect me because I realized how much I loved Sunday. Like,
Sunday's your least loved dog,
yes,
I think.
because she's a very difficult dog and she's just on her shit all the time. And
she fucked around and she found out.
She did, and she'd do it again. But I was like, holy shit, dogs can be dogs. And when you're socializing, please never let your guard down.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's dogs that have been great 9 out of 10 times together, just watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second you let your guard down,
they'll get you.
They'll get your dog.
And you told me that. I felt so bad for laughing, but just the visual of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
I told every employee here, I was like, hey, Sonny just got attacked. And they were like, oh, by who? And I said, and they're like, really? And they're like, well, I can't look at that dog the same anymore. And then, the dog's here because it attacks its siblings. So.
It's not like you were unaware.
I wasn't unaware. I was just dumb. And I'm so used to dogs socializing. And I thought, okay, first 10 to 15 minutes, everything looks great. Let's rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they rocked and rolled.
They rocked. Sunday rolled.
She rocked and Sunday rolled.
But
oh, man.
Obviously did a check on Sunday. There was not even a puncture wound on her. It was all just like a slap fight, slobbery. Yeah. But it looked scary. It sounded scary because when beagles get into trouble, it's like, what?
They're so dramatic.
Especially Sunday.
Yeah, she's so dramatic. That makes me think of, do you know who Dr. Pole is?
Yeah.
That vet. The large animal vet.
Yeah.
He has his own TV show.
Yeah.
I love him. There was a episode of him treating a beagle, and the beagle was like hiding underneath the table. And it was like, all things considered, fine. Like nothing was really wrong with this dog. But when he went in there to go get it, it just started screaming, and he was carrying it, and he's screaming it. And he's so unbothered by the whole thing. And he sets the dog down on the table and he goes, beagles. They're the worst. They always scream about everything. He's like, you could have a dog in here of any other breed and you're having to saw its leg off and it's fine. But a beagle, you just look at them wrong and they start screaming.
And very powerful screaming. If you have a hound, if you have a beagle, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But it's alarming. It's an alarming sound.
Yes. And we're not making light of a dog fight.
No.
By any means.
No.
But... Stay woke.
You have to, I think it's like people in the medical field, you have to have somewhat of a warped sense of humor after a little bit of time in something like this to cope.
Yes. Yep. We do. So stay safe out there.
Yeah, stay safe out there. I think that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah.
We didn't really get to suppression.
No, maybe next time. If you guys have topics for the 5 watchers of this podcast. Is my mom one of them? I don't know.
Yeah, just let us know. But we'll probably talk about suppression next time. That seems to be a hot topic.
Yeah.
Very controversial, Sticky to get into.
All right.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Stay humble, stay woke.
Bye.